Hello and welcome to Public Affairs Now, our super local look at what's going on in the Maryland General Assembly and the Anne Arundel County Council. I'm Dave Abrams. Welcome to the show. Over the course of the last 2 months, we've been updating you on everything going on in the Maryland General Assembly, and we're going to continue that today, racing to the April 11th sine die, the last day of the session. My guests today are Delegate Mark Chang from District 32. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
And, of course, Len Lazarick from MarylandReporter.com. Len, thanks for being on the show again.
Good to be here.
Let's start with you, Delegate. Tell our viewers a little bit about your district and also your committee assignment.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor to represent the folks of the 32nd District in the Maryland State Legislature. The district includes Lincecum, Laurel, Glen Burnie, Severn, Odenton, Fort Meade, Jessup. So it's up in the northwestern part of the county. The committees that I serve on is I serve on the full committee of the appropriations, and that's the budget committee for the House of Delegates. And so we review the budget and also matters that deal with the fiscal issues of the state. The subcommittee that I serve on is the Public Safety and Administration, and that subcommittee deals with agencies and state government that keep our community safe, like the National Guard, Maryland State Police, shock trauma, the Maryland Emergency Management. We also deal a lot with juvenile services and the Department of Corrections. And also in the county delegation, we have subcommittees. And I was assigned to be the chairman of the Capital Subcommittee this year. And then I also serve on the subcommittee that deals with alcohol laws in the county.
And give us a little flavor of what's going on right now. You guys are meeting at night. There's a lot of voting sessions. Are you basically, constantly trying to catch up on bills and push that button just over and over and over again right now?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, David, for asking me that question. The legislature, Maryland State Legislature, is a 90-day session, and so this session ends on April 11th, and so we have as of today, 20 days left to go. And typically there's about 2,000 bills that get introduced into the legislature, and so those
Only
different
2,000?
bills. Well, typically, but this year
That's a lot.
It's a little more. So
Okay.
actually, there was a lot of freshmen that came in last year, so we all kind of got the hang of how bills work, and so we're putting a lot in this year. But those different bills, they go to the different subcommittees or the different committees depending on the subject matter, and then those bills are voted out of committee or receive unfavorable report or a summer study, and then they eventually go over to the different chambers, and then they got to cross chambers and eventually go to the governor for either a signature or a veto. So that process was a lot of papers to push, a lot of hearings, a lot of listening, a lot of testimonies to be heard, and so we stay pretty busy. Typically, during the usual day of the legislature, early on, we meet on Mondays starting in the evening about 8 o'clock, and then we'll mostly do ceremonial things and the recognitions. And then, but Tuesday through Friday, we'll during the day we go to our committee meetings, we go to our subcommittee meetings, and then we also during the day we go into session and vote on different bills. But actually, Monday, just this past Monday, we had crossover Monday, and this day where it's a milestone in the legislative session where if bills get pushed out of, for example, I'm in the House of Delegates, with bills getting pushed out on crossover day out of the House that day, it gives them more of a shot of getting over to the Senate and for bill passage.
Right.
And so that's an important milestone. So
That's when everything starts going fast.
Exactly.
Fast.
So this past Saturday we met. We were in session from about 11 o'clock until probably about 5 o'clock or so, and then Monday we came in early, around 11, and then we went pretty late last evening too. So now we're past the crossover. So now all the Senate bills are going to start coming over to the House, and our House bills will start going over to the Senate, and so we'll finish strong to the finish line here.
Len, both of us mentioned April 11th, and I used the phrase sine die. Not everybody knows what that is. Could you explain what that is and tell us what happens on the last day of the session, basically?
Well, it's hard to predict what happens on the last day of the session. Oftentimes there's a lot of waiting around for bills. what Delegate Chang was talking about was the kind of their midterm exams, and they were doing all this cramming, and right after that, actually, the work slows down a little bit on the floor. There's a lot of floor action now, and then toward the end, it speeds up again. And on the last day, there's a lot of back and forth, and that's where things can get things that look like they were going to pass pretty easily sometimes get jammed up, and things you didn't know about kind of creep out to the floor.
And it's like Cinderella, the clock strikes midnight and poof, everybody's gone. That's it.
Right. And in the ancient past, even before my time, there was they would actually manipulate the clocks in the House and the Senate to turn it back. Much as they manipulate the calendar, they start saving up days. They recess, so the calendar day is different from the legislative day, so that as they get toward the end, they can, on the same day, they can't pass, on the same day they will go from one day to another in the middle of the day. I know it sounds confusing, and it often is.
Yes, it is, but it's something that folks in the audience, if they want to come see how this all works, that's a good day to do it, April 11th. Let's talk about, a lot of bills are moving right now.
Yes, they
Delegate
are.
Chang, could you tell us like one or two that you voted on already that have passed the full House that you want people to know about? I think the earned income tax credit passed.
Yes, the earned income tax credit passed. What that does, that expands the tax credit for folks who are in moderate low income. It helps them out as far as tax relief, and it also expands also to single individuals who don't have children. And so as we continue to recover from the economy, it's important to look for ways to help our working families out there. And
you voted for that bill?
That's correct.
Okay.
I voted for that, and I'm come from a modest family, and so I know that keeping money in our pockets and helping our families is the most important thing. And so I think as legislators, we got to do all we can to protect the taxpayers.
Let's take a quick break here from the local. We do like to focus on the local, but we have, right after the session ends, we have primaries coming in Maryland, and obviously all of the news has been about the presidential campaign, and I'm starting to see commercials now from the folks who are running for Barbara Mikulski's Senate seat, Chris Van Hollen and Donna Edwards. And then also on the Republican side, you have Kathy Szeliga, who is, of course, a member of this House of Delegates, and Chris Cefalis, is it? Cefalis is the other candidate. Excuse me, Chris. Sorry about that. Chris is the other candidate running for the Senate. What's
Actually,
going?
there are a lot more than that, but
Those are the main ones.
Yeah. So first of all, for the Anne Arundel people, Anne Arundel County is one of the more gerrymandered county. They're actually in 4 different congressional districts. And there is actually competitive primary in District 4, which includes, it's hard to say what it includes.
Yeah,
because
we'd be here all day.
Because it's crazy the way the map is drawn. In any case, it's based in Prince George's County. That's the seat that Donna Edwards currently represents, and she's running for the Senate. She's one of the 2 leading candidates for the Senate, and there are a number of fairly well-known people, all from Prince George's County, running for that seat, including a delegate that represents part of Anne Arundel County, Jocelyn Pena-Melnick.
Doesn't everyone represent a part of Anne Arundel County? That was a joke. That was a joke there. Delegate, who's your congressional representative? Is it Donna Edwards?
No, mine is Congressman Sarbanes.
Okay, mine as well, and Edwards is across the street from me.
That's
so I don't
correct.
know.
That's correct.
Are you involved in this at all? Are you
Yes,
doing
I
any work
am.
for candidates?
I am for the U.S. Senate race. We do have a U.S. Senate open race, succeeding Senator Mikulski, and I've already come out and endorsed Congressman Chris Van Hollen for
Okay.
that seat. I think Chris Van Hollen, he actually served in the state legislature, so he has state experience, and he was on the budget committee there. He understands the budget process, understands the state budget, but then also in Congress, he's also on the fiscal committee over in the House. I mean, the House of Representatives over in Congress. So he understands the important issues of fiscal responsibility about our nation's economy. But as of today, as you know, this morning we all woke up to the terrorist tragedy in Brussels, and all our thoughts and prayers go out to those families in Brussels and throughout the entire world. And also another strength that Congressman Van Hollen has is he understands foreign policy. He understands about keeping our country safe. And I think at a time like this, we need someone who's going to be in the U.S. Senate, who's going to be able to protect our nation, protect our country, and do what we can as far as with foreign policy to eradicate that evil that exists out there. But then also on the home front, making sure that our economy continues to grow.
Well, I'm sure that race is going to get really hot. Now, Len, let's talk about the other elephant in the room, so to speak, which is the Donald Trump effect. Have you heard anything about what people are expecting for Maryland's primary? You know, I've heard some talk of Hogan coattails, and could that happen and help Republicans? I couldn't even venture a guess as to how Trump would affect, and I've heard that Hillary Clinton has supposedly a sizable advantage in the polls over Bernie Sanders.
Well, it's kind of speculative at this point. I think it's true that Hillary will do well in Maryland. And generally, the way the Maryland rules work is that they get their delegates based on the congressional district. And
is Maryland winner take all?
No, by congressional district. So
that's different than a lot.
Right. They could win one congressional district and lose another. I was actually looking at the list last night. There are a lot of elected officials, at least on the Republican side, who filed to be delegates, and some of them have already been designated by candidates. Some are running without being endorsed by candidates. There are some Trump people. A number of people associated with the Hogan administration were designated by Chris Christie, who has dropped out of the race. There are Bush people. There are Rubio people. I don't know how they're fare on the ballot. So we'll see. We haven't seen a lot of polling, but we're talking about a month away. I mean,
maybe Maryland will actually have a little part in this, because Trump is pushing toward that magic number, and every delegate's going to count and getting near there.
There is the potential for that, but we'll have to see.
We never get to participate. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, let's get back to the local stuff for a second here. We had to talk about that.
Sure, absolutely.
It's exciting. Everybody enjoys it. Let's talk about your bills in your second year. We only have time to talk. Let's talk about one, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about a bill your sponsor you're particularly proud of.
Yes, there's several. If I could mention maybe a couple, actually.
Sure. You're the delegate.
The first bill I wanted to talk about, though, is human trafficking.
Okay.
Unfortunately, human trafficking is an evil that exists in our society, especially in the area that we live in with 95, 295, 100, all the hotels, the airport. There's a lot of great assets that we have, but unfortunately, there's evil individuals out there who use them for all the wrong reasons. So in our country, unfortunately, there's over 100,000 young boys and girls who are used as victims of sexual slavery each and every year. And so I introduced a bill and it passed the House of Delegates, and it's now going over to the Senate, that requires that school-based personnel in our Anne Arundel County school system are aware of the signs that exist with regards to human trafficking. The second one deals with pets. Pets are an important part of our families. We love and care about them. And one of the bills that I put in was just a real quick safety measure that for dogs and cats and other pets that have microchips, that facilities, animal control facilities, do a quick scan just to try to match up with the pet owner with the pet based on the identification in that code there. The one bill that I'm working on that's a national conversation through the NFL down to our fields at the local rec areas is the concussion bill that I put in. And the concussion bill just builds upon the existing law and actually puts penalties. So if coaches knowingly put players back in who have sustained a concussion, they would be penalized for that. First would be a suspension from that game. Second would be a suspension from that season, and then following it will be a suspension from other further seasons. So,
and that we were talking about that off camera. It's interesting that we don't know if your bill is going to pass this year. It's stuck in committee right now, but the NFL just acknowledged that this syndrome exists, which
Absolutely.
is a huge game changer for what happens going forward. So I think next year, this is going to be a major focus, and your bill will be, in play there.
Absolutely. And Brandy Chastain, the U.S. Women's Soccer Olympian, she came out and she's going to be donating her brain when she passes on to understand CTE. And also we have a lot of folks from this area, University of Maryland Hospital, Children's Hospital, the Maryland or the National Pediatric Association. They're all involved in this. And so we'll see how it goes this year, but we plan to be back next year. And we'll also look at expanding other types of legislation to keep our kids safe out there on the field. As a matter of fact, the Frank Gifford, who had passed away earlier this year, his son has also reached out to us, Kathy Lee Gifford's son, and so once again involved in helping us out. So with this issue for me, this legislation will not be going away. We're going to keep on working on it.
Our generation does not know what an amazing football player Frank Gifford was. That guy was amazing.
Absolutely.
Len, tell us a little bit. The delegate touched on it, but in a nutshell, how hard is it to pass a bill in the Maryland General Assembly, especially as a freshman legislator or in your second year? How hard is it to do that? I mean, what's the success rate?
Well, one of the signs of this is when a freshman legislator gets their first bill passed, there tends to be applause on the House floor if people recognize it.
Did that
in
happen?
terms of 21,
good. Congratulations.
2,500 bills, about 700 bills get passed.
Okay.
A lobbyist will tell you it's easier to kill a bill than to pass a bill. To kill a bill, all it takes is a vote in committee, or you get the chairman to put it in they call it put it in the drawer. It doesn't. It doesn't really go in a drawer.
There's no drawer?
They simply no. There's
I thought there was a drawer.
There is no drawer. There's no.
We
drawer.
get you all the inside facts here, folks.
The chair simply does not put it on the voting list, and if it doesn't get voted on, it obviously doesn't come out of committee. That's a place where it's easy to kill a bill, and once it comes out of committee, then it may pass the House or Senate. And you have the same process that goes on in the other chamber, and particularly the other side of the State House is not necessarily as sympathetic as your own people, especially you're on a committee, your committee friends help you get the bill passed, but then it goes to the Senate committee, and
maybe the Senate just wants to show us how tough they are sometimes. I mean, it can be that. They just want to show the House, nope.
There are all kinds of reasons that bills die, and there are a lot of worthy causes. I was just responding to an email this morning about bills. I get contacted by a lot of, I would say only 10% of the bills ever get written about or covered. There are all kinds of potentially worthy causes that don't raise a lot of attention that are important to some people. People wrote to me about artificial turf in schools, and they want signs on the field, and another person this morning wanted to raise the issue of the effect on children's eyesight of spending all the time on computers, and what are the standards for that. I mean, there are all kinds of things like that are often very emotional causes. But they can't pass everything, and there's a natural resistance to pass certain kinds of legislation telling other people what to do.
Yep, sometimes it's good that it's hard to pass legislation. You don't want to pass tons of stuff. That's bad. Let's get to the issue, the biggest local issue of the year. Every episode of this show, we have discussed this. The school board. The school board. So give us an update where we are and where you are on the school board bill, and could you kind of explain to people as quickly as you can? It's a really complicated issue, but tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm a product of the Anne Arundel County school system. Went to Corcoran, went to Lindale, graduated from Glen Burnie High School. So, very proud of our school system that we have here. The bill that was one of the bills that was introduced this year was to deal with the school board nomination commission, and that dealt with the composition of the board's board members on there. And so, to sum it up, the bill that was passed. The intention was to bring more diversity. Our county is starting to be more diverse as far as African Americans, Hispanics, Asians. Those populations are growing, and so we believe that it was important to have representation on the school board nomination commission to eventually select those members who would be on the school board. Also, we live in a very vibrant area of Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Fort Meade. A lot of big businesses, also a lot of mid-sized business and small businesses. So the bill also entails having additional Chamber of Commerce representation on there.
And those seats have to go from one place to the other. So those were the two seats that were appointed by the governor. Is that
the governor? Right.
Okay.
Right. And so also, and the other thing too is that since it is an Anne Arundel County school board, we believe that it was important for the school board that be selected by, there was more input from the local community, from the county. So it actually increased also the number of representatives that were selected by the county executive from 2 to 3. So there's additional county input into who's being selected. And also, we also didn't want to forget the other diverse communities in our area, individuals with developmental disabilities, and so there's also an organization on there that will be able to select a member to serve on that committee too.
Well, last time we talked about this, I was skeptical that this bill was going to pass. I've changed my mind.
Okay.
This bill is probably going to pass.
It looks like it. It looks like, and the important thing too is that right now we do have one Hispanic that's on the school board right now, and so hopefully we can continue to increase the diversity in our school system. Back in 1963, just a real quick history lesson, back in 1963, African Americans, they had to go to a separate school in Anne Arundel County Public School, so they had to go to Willie Bates, they had to go to school there, and they couldn't go to school at Glen Burnie High School. And so it's important to remember our past and to make sure that we continue to look out for all the kids in this county.
And just for the record, we do have another appointment coming up in District 33.
That's correct.
We have several African American candidates for that seat. So there's somewhat of a chance that the third person that is appointed to the board is going to be an African American.
Absolutely, and I'm excited about it because it's so important for families out there. I know everybody lives a busy life and everything, but it's so important for families to get involved in their school system and to do what they can for the kids.
Absolutely. So we touched on the idea of local bills that they're called bond bills, and basically they commit state funding to help pay for certain capital projects.
Absolutely.
Len, tell us a little bit about what these things are, and hasn't there in the past been a rule, no bond bills? Is that in effect this year? What are they doing this year with those?
I think that happened during the recession. I don't believe the governor left any room for it, but there are a whole bunch of there was a whole.
These are the ball field lights you talked about. The signs.
There was a whole Saturday where dozens, scores of people came down, had 5 minutes to present their case for their bond bills. I see in the capital budget that's coming out, there's 50,000 here, 30,000 there. Looked to me like the highest was like 150,000, 125,000, but a lot in the $50,000 range for projects all over the state, within a district, and there's generally people have to raise matching funds to match the state funds, or the local jurisdiction has to come up with money. It's a relatively small pie that gets sliced up in very small slices.
Delegate, tell us about a couple of bond bills that are important to you in Anne Arundel County.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I was assigned to be the chairman of the Anne Arundel County Capital Subcommittee, and so this year we had 15 different projects that were submitted to our delegation to review. the subcommittee that I serve on and myself, we all met. We had a rubrics that entailed as far as the county-wide effect, if the projects were shovel-ready, where the projects were geographically, and we had prioritized several projects that we believed would affect, was fair to all the folks of Anne Arundel County. The first one dealt with the Arc of the Chesapeake. They looked at a bond project to increase their capacity to help individuals with developmental disabilities throughout the entire county. So that was.
And where's that located?
That's in Sever.
Okay.
And then there was also another project that's down in Annapolis that serves all of Anne Arundel County, but southern and Annapolis part. That was a lighthouse shelter. They put in a new project to do some expansion to help the homeless there. And then also Glen Burnie High School had submitted a project for a field house, a new field house up in the Glen Burnie high school area, that community. It's a very old high school, and so we believed it was a priority to put that bond project high up on the category 2. So, and then also another important project that we are proud of that we put as a high priority was the YWCA. They had a domestic violence shelter that they're looking at finishing it up, and unfortunately 1 in 4 families experience domestic violence, and so we as a county delegation believe that domestic violence is wrong, and we want to do what we can to help those families out. So that's why we also put that as a high priority. Altogether, those projects, all 15 projects came out to about $2.9 million. And last legislative session, for the whole entire state out of 24 jurisdiction, there was only $5 million in each chamber that was allocated to bond bills. So it was a very tough decision to make, but we made a decision as a county delegation to prioritize those items that I just mentioned based on the county-wide effect and the demographics that are being served.
Well, those sound like very worthy institutions who could use a little bit of help. And like we said, the General Assembly takes up a lot of big issues like the state budget, the gun control, right to die, all these huge issues. But when it comes down to it, these people are spending a lot of time on local issues as well. So that's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to, if you want to get involved and you want to see really what's going on in the General Assembly, you can go to their website. It's mlis.state.md.us, or certainly come down to Annapolis. Maybe April 11th, sine die, the last day of the session, is a great time to come see what happens. And I want to thank, as always, our guests, Delegate Mark Chang. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Len Lazarick from MarylandReporter.com. Be sure to go on Facebook and like Len's page and follow his dispatches from Annapolis. And we'll see you next time.